All right, we are live for another Travel Tip Tuesday, and today my guest is Beth Gould, and we are going to talk about living and traveling in Canada, and I'm really excited to talk about this. Thank you so much, Beth, for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited as well.
Absolutely. No, it's so cool, the people that I get to meet on social media and like Instagram, and just YouTube too, like all the different travelers. But I'm excited to talk about this. And you guys, if you guys see in the description of this video, she has her own YouTube channel. I've been following her and just seeing what she's been doing in Canada, and it's been very inspiring to me. So I wanted to share it with you guys and have her on and talk about a little bit of what she's done. She's got a pretty interesting story, so I'm ready to get into it. I don't know, I think it's interesting. So I feel like we all simmer down our interesting stories,
That's true. It's true.
So let's start off with that. I want you to, introduce yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about you and how you even got to Vancouver.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hey guys. So my name is Beth. I am originally from Melbourne, Australia, and nearly 2 years ago now, I think. Yeah, in 2018, my partner and I decided to do a working holiday in Canada. We kind of just felt like we were sick of doing the whole just working every year and only doing like a vacation every now and then. So we thought while we had the opportunity to be able to travel and work, to take advantage of it. So yeah, we moved over to do like a winter season at a ski resort, and we just haven't gone home yet. We pretty much just stayed here.
That's the life that I want.
But yeah, so we lived in the Rocky Mountains for a bit and did working on a ski resort, and then we thought we'd try out living in the city because we're both from cities back home, and so just been living in Vancouver back and forth between there.
So that's really cool. So where in the Rocky Mountains did you live?
Yeah, so I worked at a resort called Panorama Mountain Resort. So it's about I'm trying to think about how to explain it. It's about 3 hours west from Calgary. So
the Rocky Mountains go how far north? Because I know the Rocky Mountains are in Colorado, in the U.S., obviously. So how far north do those go? I don't even know.
I'm not even 100% sure, to be honest.
Really far north?
I know. I really don't know. I know when we were there, we were 3 hours from the U.S. border. So I guess it just keeps going up for a while. So
for a while.
Cool. For a while. I'm it goes north.
I feel like the people in the U.S., I think Rocky Mountains, I just think Colorado. So I'm just when you said Rocky Mountains, I'm is she in the U.S.? I'm I don't think so, but
yeah, Rocky Mountains in Canada, yeah.
Love it. All right. So then you were there, and then you went to Vancouver. So that's probably because Vancouver is right above Washington.
Yes. Yeah.
And then so Rocky Mountains is probably a few hours east of there, right?
Yeah. It was about when we did the drive, it was about a 9-hour drive between Vancouver and where we were.
Straight east. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel I mean, no offense to Americans, but I feel we're horrible with geography. Even our own states, because there's 50 of them. We're
so many,
Kentucky's out there somewhere. We don't know. But no offense to people in Kentucky either, but
I know what you mean for sure. Yeah,
when I tell people about the whole trip that I did, they're wait, what? They're hold on. So I've gotten a lot better at geography since traveling. So
that's totally good. Yeah, I feel
traveling definitely helps. You kind of got to know where you're at in correspondence.
It's so true.
Before that,
honestly, same.
Yeah. So how has it? I want to talk about how different Canada is, and Canada's even a whole different world than here in the U.S., which we're going to get into. But how different is it from Australia?
Honestly, it's quite similar, I found. There are some things that I notice are quite different. I think the cost of living is a bit higher. And just a couple of things that are a bit strange, like phone plans, for instance, are quite expensive here. So there's some little things like that I think I noticed when I got here. But overall, it's pretty like it's pretty similar. I haven't found it like drastically different or anything like that. It's just been small kind of like day-to-day things.
Yeah. So obviously the landscape is pretty similar.
I guess like here, I guess that's actually pretty different. Yeah, because here there's a lot more like mountains. There's a lot more lakes. I guess it's more like scenic. But I guess from where I was living back in Australia, I was living in the middle of like a city. There is obviously like some nice like landscapes and everything like that in Australia as well. But here I think, there's definitely different in terms of like mountains, I guess. And some of the lakes here as well. They're beautiful.
I see the pictures on Instagram and I'm like, is that Photoshop? Like,
I know, honestly, it feels like that when you see them. I'm like, how is this real life?
Your video that I think it was one of your most recent videos or whatever, you did like a hike or something and you went to that, you like took forever to get into the water with me. And it's like winter water, okay? Like
I know, it's so cold.
I mean, you have to jump in. There's no dipping your toe in there.
I know. I was like, I just have to go straight in for it.
It looked like a crystal blue, like just I wanted to go to Canada so bad when I took that trip because I was planning on going up to Idaho and Montana already in September since like before COVID, pre-COVID. And I wanted to go up into Canada too, but COVID, so like you can't really cross borders like that. And I don't know if that's changed because someone was just telling me today about how or yesterday that they their dog trainer or something had to like fly into Canada, and I was like, I thought Canada wasn't accepting people.
I thought that as well. Maybe there's like special exemptions or something. Maybe. I'm not sure. I didn't think they were either.
Very interesting.
Who knows?
So is Australia pretty flat, or like what's the landscape in Australia?
I mean, like compared to Canada and some of like the states, especially up north, I would say it's more flat, but I mean, there still is like some mountains and there still is stuff like that, but there's nothing compared to here. Here I'm like, oh, okay, this is a mountain. Like
a real mountain. Well, I'm from Florida, so in Florida, it's literally nothing. Nothing. Like negative level. So when I went to the Rocky Mountains, because one of my recent videos is on the Rocky Mountains, I'm like literally driving there. I'm like, what is this? What am I'm turning the corner and I'm like, I said OMG and like wow so many times. I had to like cut it out of the video. I was like, I said it 20 times. Like, that can't be the content of my video. It's just wow. Do you guys see it?
Honestly, I felt the same, especially when we first moved over. Because we came in the winter as well, and like back in Australia it doesn't get obviously as cold as it does in Canada, and just arriving and seeing like the massive mountains and all of the snow, it was definitely I definitely would have said OMG and like wow so many times. I was like, how is this real? This is insane.
It's crazy. It's like when you travel and it's like you have an expectation of what it's going to look like. And I think that that's like the biggest thing is like we're all taught like, oh, what is America supposed to look like? And which is everything, like depending on where you are. But like we all have this idea of what things are supposed to look like. And I know that when I went to Utah and when I went to Idaho and when I went to like, I had this preconceived notion. I thought there was like going to be nothing. Like Idaho thought it was flat. And then it wasn't. And I was like, oh. And like Utah, like it was just like so crazy how different it was. I remember like Idaho felt like 4 different states, and I'm like, what is going on here? What are y'all doing? So it was crazy, and I think that that's like one of the things that with travel really helps is like once you start to travel and you see like how different these places are from like your preconceived, like I guess what you're taught, like it's only really what you're taught, right?
100%.
Like you think that there's nothing past, the East. It's like it is what it is. But there's like, so much out there.
I thought that it didn't even get like hot in Canada. I was like, oh, it's just like a winter wonderland all the time, always cold, always snowing. And then our first summer here, it gets really hot. I was like, oh, okay. It gets really warm. I mean, not as warm as Australia. Australia does like get very hot, but I guess I just thought it was always going to be like super cold. And there's some days where it was really warm, and I thought, okay. And then every Canadian I spoke to, I only know
Florida. Remember?
Okay, and nothing on Florida, and nothing I think Florida is so humid, but I don't even know how to do Fahrenheit conversion, but
it's okay.
It gets really hot.
But like 30 Celsius?
Yes, it can get up to that. I mean, mostly sticks around like 25 to 30. So nothing on like southern states, but still hot in comparison to like
it's like in the 70s,
yes.
80s. Okay. Yes. That's like a dream for me. But
yeah.
Okay. But I like it when it's that hot. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so that's interesting. So I'm sure it was kind of like a culture shock when you moved over there. Was it anything of what you expected it to be?
I think the mountains were what I expected, but still it blew me away kind of when I got there. Like it still is. I feel like even if you assume something's going to be like something when you see it in real life, it still like hits a bit different. And yeah, I mean, I guess it was what I expected, but it definitely still blew me away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a special place. I haven't even been there, but I know how special it is from these photos. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just pretty much just wanted to move because you thought like, okay, I'm young and I should travel now. Is that pretty much like the biggest thing that like pulled you over there? Was there anything else like, or was it just
well, I'd been working like full-time in like an office job for 2 years, which I liked, but I thought like I have this opportunity to be able to go and work and live overseas. Because the visa that I'm on, like for Australians, you can go on this visa for 2 years in Canada up until you're 31, I think it is. So I thought, like while I'm in this age bracket, like I should take the opportunity to do this and come over here. Yeah. And I'd done a lot of traveling of the States before and I loved it. So I was like, I want to travel more of the States. Like I want to go to Canada. So it just seemed like a really like good spot to kind of base myself for as long as I could. But yeah, that's kind of like the main reason. I just thought, why not?
How did you start traveling? Like, have you been traveling most of your life? Like, did you?
I grew up between like Australia and New Zealand because like my mom's Australian and my dad's from New Zealand. And then I didn't start traveling, I guess, like by myself until like my 21st. I spent my 21st at Disneyland in America. That was like my dream. I'd been saving since I was like 13. That was my big thing. And then when I got back from that trip, I was like, I like this. Like, I want to keep doing this.
So that was your first solo trip?
Yeah, I went to America.
Big trip.
I went to America for 2 months by myself. Yeah, for my first trip. Which looking back, I'm like, what?
Well, no, that's awesome. I mean, I love that. Like, I think traveling alone is like a very big thing that I think everybody should do. Like, I feel like and for you to do that at 21, like I didn't travel alone until 24, 25, 24, whatever, whatever age it was. So like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine how much it would have impacted my life like 3 years prior, like at 21. So that's like a huge thing, especially 2 months. Like that's not a short trip. It's not like I went for my first solo trip was like 4 days.
I don't know. Yeah. Looking back, I'm like, that was bold. But I mean, worth it. Yeah.
So how do you think like if you didn't take that trip, how do you think like your life would be different? Like, do you think that it's really impacted you? Yeah.
Yeah, in so many ways too. I mean, one, it inspired me to travel more and made me, I guess, like more confident and, traveling by yourself, like you get out of your comfort zone. But I also met my partner who I've been with for 3 years on that trip. So he was also from Australia, but he was on a trip in America. So we just both met on that trip. So I'm always like, if I didn't go on that trip, like my life would be so different. Like it would completely different. Yeah.
Is that how you do it? Is that how you find a man while traveling?
My family always makes jokes because it's like I traveled halfway across the world and ended up finding someone who was from the same city as me. Like, how does that happen?
That's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah. I was actually, when I was in Colorado, this past trip, I ran into a lot of Floridians, surprisingly. Yeah. I was like, you wanted to get the hell out too?
I think that's what happened. Yeah.
I was like, I get you. And then two of them, it was like a couple, and they had met on the plane. They had met a few months prior, and then they were back traveling there, but they had met on a plane and they were both from Florida. but they were like completely out of a whole other area. So it was like really crazy. I was like, how do these things?
Yeah, I know.
Do you have to sign up for that? Is that like, I don't know. But,
yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Yeah, I think that travel really does make a huge impact on people's lives. And, a lot of people I think are just really afraid. They just don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was like, wow, like you did that at 21, like 2 months. Like that is bold. I admire that. I would totally do that like in a heartbeat now. Like I think that, yeah, everyone should do that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So what, COVID over there?
Yeah.
So you obviously still have family over in Australia, right? So how has it been different, like for COVID over there, obviously talking to your family, and like COVID here, like how has Canada been going?
Yeah, I think with Australia, they've had like a lot more lockdowns and a lot more restrictions. So a lot of the times when I talk to my friends and family, they're, at home and they're not able to go out and everything. Whereas I think Canada they've still had restrictions, but they've been more relaxed as opposed to like my family back home. So my family are like, what are you doing? How come you're still able to do this or this? It's just because I've been in like a harsher lockdown, but yeah.
But doesn't Australia have like no cases right now? Like or was that New Zealand or some? I thought New Zealand. Australia.
Yeah, I mean, Australia has pretty low cases. I think like the handling of the whole situation's been pretty good. I think it was New Zealand who didn't have any cases for a while. But the lockdown has been like quite harsh in Australia. But I mean, they're getting on top of the cases, which is really good. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So what are you guys allowed to do in Canada? Like, how are things over there?
Well, it changes from like province to province, but in BC, there's nothing really, I guess, like I can still leave my house and I can still do things, but I need to wear a mask, I need to like socially distance, and we can kind of travel within like the province. But yeah, just the travel that I guess like what's changed, especially for us, is like the kind of travel that we're doing, because we'll just go on like a camping trip or something where we're able to kind of like socially distance from everyone. But yeah, like it changes from like province to province. I don't really know too much about like the other provinces, but in BC it's we can still do a lot of things. It's just different, I guess, like to how it used to be, obviously. Yeah.
So you've just been doing a lot more camping and hiking and such like that.
Yeah. Like luckily, like my partner and I can work from home, like which is really good. And then we've just been doing like hiking, camping, just things where we can be safe and socially distance and like set a good example as well. But yeah, which has been, I mean, it's been good. It's just been, I guess, different, but it's different for everyone, like everything going on. Yeah.
So when it comes to that, how have you guys? So do you think is that something that you guys were doing before? Did you do a lot of camping and hiking before? And this is just like, oh, this is also we already did this, or did you get into it because you were like in this circumstance?
We have done a lot of like camping and hiking before. Like this time, well, I mean, around like May last year, we did a 2-month road trip through the States and did like a lot of camping and stuff like that. And then we did like a lot of hiking over last summer. But this summer we had planned to move like really east and go to Toronto, and we were like, oh, we'll just live like the city life and we'll do a lot of traveling and stuff. So it changed in the like aspect that we are doing more camping and hiking this year, but like we love to do it anyway, so it wasn't like a big massive like change or anything like
it wasn't
that.
Like a new aspect.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, we'll do that again this summer.
Okay. Yeah. Because I feel like here in the US, it's really changed the landscape of things. Not that like people weren't interested in it before, but I think that like the domestic travel has gone up a lot because people like need to get out. So they're like, well, what's the closest place I can go? So the road trips, a lot of people are investing in RVs. A lot of people are doing the van life. A lot of people are, camping more and like going to those campgrounds. So I think that for Americans, it's really gotten people more outside than what I feel like some people would have never gotten out there. And then they have. So that's why I asked, like, because I wondered if it was like a new hobby or if you guys like already did that. I figured you guys already did that. But
I know what you mean.
Because I was like hiking and camping, and now it's like, oh, convenient. Like now I have an excuse to go hiking and camping.
I love that.
Yeah. So, and that's why, you know, I got to do that whole trip. I was supposed to be in Budapest in April.
Yeah.
And COVID. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And then like I just took the extra time in September, and that's why I did that huge road trip. But that was like supposed to only be like Idaho and Montana, and it turned out to be like this huge thing.
I love that. Yeah.
It's fun. So what do you think you enjoy the most about Canada? What's your favorite part?
I think my favorite part is how like drastically different all the seasons are, because back in Australia I feel like it's either just really hot or cold, but in Canada it's like, you know, in winter it's snowing, and then in fall all like the fall leaves are around. So like my favorite thing, that when anyone ever asks this question, I'm like, I just love how like dramatic the seasons are, like, and everyone like celebrates, I guess, the seasons. I feel like in Australia it's just summer or winter. People are like, oh, whatever. But here it's like, it's fall, it's spring. And I love that. And that's probably like my favorite thing.
Huh, that's interesting. I feel like I would act the same way, because being from Florida, we don't even have the cold. It's hot, hotter, or hottest. Like it's just variations of hot. So I like haven't even got to experience a full fall or a winter.
Yeah,
so
true.
I feel like if it was so extreme, like I don't even know what my sensories would do. Like if it was extreme, I was like with like a crazy fall and winter.
I feel like I'm always just so excited. Everyone's like, it's okay, it's just fall. I'm like, no, it's so exciting.
Well, and then there's not only like, and you know, clothes aren't a big deal, but like I feel like it's different wardrobes. Like you literally have to have a different wardrobe for summer, fall, and winter, like when you're in a place with that type of weather. So that's awesome. What do you miss the most about Australia?
I mean, I definitely miss like my friends and family the most, especially like now that like COVID's hit and everything. I miss that. And I miss like my city. Like I feel like because Melbourne is like, you know, like my city, I guess I miss that every now and then. I'm like, oh, I love Vancouver, but it's like, you know, home is always kind of home. But, yeah.
And
otherwise,
kind of life?
I lived like out of the city growing up, like 3 hours out of the city. And then I lived in New Zealand for a bit growing up as well. But Melbourne always kind of like felt like my city. Like that was like my home. And I lived there before I like left for about 3 years. So yeah.
So how long has it been since you've been home?
Well, I actually went back to Australia in January before like COVID hit and everything. I went back for a week. Yeah, I know. I like can't believe it. Literally, like at the start of January, went back for like 2 weeks. But yeah, so luckily I was able to get that trip in. But otherwise, yeah, that's the only time I've been home since like 2018. So
18. Wow. So that was already a big thing. And then, well, at least you got a little glimpse of it.
No, I'm so glad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How was it to be back home for that short period of time? Like, did you feel like, oh, this is great to see and like experience again, but like I'm good? Or like, how did you feel?
Yeah, a little bit. I think
you needed to be back, or you know.
It felt nice to be back, but it felt so weird. It was almost like reverse culture shock, because I went home and so many things, you know, had changed, and there's new stores and there's new everything, and people's lives have changed. People are living in different houses. And it's like, I guess I had my idea of how everything was in 2018. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back and everything is going to be like that. And then getting back and seeing everything different, that definitely felt weird, but I had a good feeling when I went home. I went home and I was like, oh, I definitely love this city. I would definitely live here again. But I think I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to Canada for a bit now. Like I'm good. But
so what was the longest that you had been away from there before that? Before moving to Canada?
Not long, probably only like the 2-month trip that I'd done. Yeah, because I moved to Melbourne when I was about 18, and then I went on that 2-month trip to the States when I was 20. But then otherwise, when I moved to Canada when I was 23, 22, that's like the longest I'd been away, was that just over a year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when I did my backpacking trip in Europe in 2018, I was gone for 4 months, and I've lived here in like Florida in my town my entire life. Yeah. So that was like the longest I had ever been gone. And when you said the reverse culture shock, it like totally got me, because I was like, I always used to, like, obviously I live in Florida. Like, I live near the beach. It is gorgeous here. Like, don't get me wrong. But, like, when people are like, oh, you're from Florida, I'm like, And I was like, it's cool. It's good. Like, and then when I came back, it was like seeing it with new eyes. And everything had changed. It was very familiar, but it felt new. And I was like, this is really weird. I was like, I know where I'm going, but I feel like I was seeing everything with like the eyes of seeing everything for new. And it was just very weird. But I could then I could see all the beauty that everyone else saw.
Yeah.
When they visited there. And I was like, okay, all right. It is pretty gorgeous here. I get it.
I was the exact same. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny when you said the reverse thing. I was just like, oh, I felt like that exact same thing.
Yeah.
So how do you see COVID changing like travel in Canada, like moving forward?
I think there'll be a lot more travel like within Canada, like similar to like the States, how you were saying, you know, there's a lot more like domestic travel and a lot more people like traveling where they can. I think that's going to be the same sort of thing here. I think it's going to be very similar in that respect because it's just you can't travel anywhere else, right? So people are just traveling kind of like where they can. But definitely I've also noticed like similar to what you were saying, like a lot more people camping, a lot more people, you know, living the van life, doing cross-country road trips, to like the provinces that you're allowed to go into. So a lot more just travel within the country, but I think it's kind of similar. Yeah.
And I wonder how that will be with the extreme with the extreme seasons there. Like that's probably going to be a big factor because a lot of times people are more in their homes. Like not that I really know because I'm in Florida, but I know they talk of this. You stay in your homes because it's cold outside and you get sad. And I'm like, I'm never not allowed outside my house unless I don't want to get hot.
Yeah.
But, you know, the whole aspect of like brutal winters and such. And obviously Canada's way more north than the US in the sense of like any of the winters that I see my friends deal with that are here in the US. So I wonder how that's going to impact things on like people who are in vans or doing cross country. Like I wonder. Like if that like stop or like I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess like skiing and snowboarding and like winter sports are a big thing over here. So it'll be interesting to see like how like ski mountains like operate and everything with like new protocols and procedures. But yeah, I'm not really sure what people will do for traveling in the winter. I'm like really interested to see now. I'm like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah. I might have to have her come back on and tell us.
Yeah. Check back in.
What happened? Follow up.
I love that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So you think that you only have, how long do you have left in Canada? Like, do you have to go back to Australia like at a certain point or?
Yeah. So my like IEC working visa ends at the end of this November, but I'm just waiting to hear back about like seeing what I can do. Because we like, my partner and I want to stay in Canada like for another winter if we can, just to kind of like avoid like international travel right now. I just would rather not have to fly back to Australia and everything. But yeah, fingers crossed we can stay. But we're just waiting to hear back about our visa. So just in limbo right now.
I wonder how they're gonna handle that because they have to be like understanding like that. Like if you don't want to go on a, you know, with the whole COVID thing, I feel like they would have to like make some type of exception.
Yeah, we're just waiting to see back. We just like kind of dabbled in it and we're like, okay, like what are our options? You know, do we go into like a visitor visa? Can we extend our work permit? So we're just waiting to hear back and see what they decide. So yeah, fingers crossed we hear back soon.
So what are the different types of, because, you know, I've never had to get a visa because pretty much I just need a passport, which obviously I think it's just different, you know? Yeah. So getting a visa, was that process hard for you guys or was it kind of easy because you're below the 31 mark?
So one visa you can apply for is like a working holiday visa. So essentially if you're an Australian, there's a bunch of other countries who are in it as well, but obviously like I'm Australian, so I just know from that perspective, but you can like apply to go on a 2-year working holiday visa. And then once your 2 years is up, it's kind of like a one-time thing that you can do like while you're under 30. So the process I mean, there's a lot of documents and everything like that, but the process itself is pretty straightforward. Like once you kind of get into it, it's just a lot of collecting documents and stuff like that. But yeah, so that was pretty good to get. Otherwise, you can apply for like permanent residency once you're here. And like, I'm not sure exactly the process on that because I haven't done that. But otherwise, it's just like a visitor visa that you can apply for as well, which is similar to the visitor visa I have to get if I go into the US as well.
Okay, yeah, because it's always so different because like we just have to get a passport and I'm like, we're good. So I guess it's easier for us, but I don't think, we don't think about that when we're like, oh, okay, like people have to get like visas when they're coming in here or, traveling. I feel like it's definitely a lot more paperwork, and especially if you have to do that every single time you come here, right? It's not like
so it depends on like kind of like visas you get, but like every time I go into either Canada or the US, I have to go through like customs and show them like my visas and make sure that's all approved and everything. So it definitely definitely is like a process, but we've been lucky so far.
Yeah. So you have a YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
So if you guys are watching, you guys should totally go check out her YouTube channel. Curious, what made you start your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I've always loved like talking to people on camera and just like feeling like you're hanging out with people. And I used to do a lot of like talking back in the day on like Snapchat and stuff like that. And then when I moved to Canada, I thought I actually want, to show people like what my working holiday is like. I want people to feel like, they can do these things and kind of show people that you can travel, you can do these things. And I love filming it. I love being able to look back on my memories. But like my biggest thing is that I just love the idea of someone watching it and like learning something from it or being like, hey, like, oh, I can do that. Like she just did that. So I love the idea that I can like help people be like, you can do something, like you just have to try. So yeah,
absolutely. That's awesome. I feel the exact same way. That's why I started mine. It's like, well, mine started from like different, like it's like a whole crazy thing. COVID actually brought my YouTube channel on. So thanks, COVID.
Mine definitely.
How long ago did you start yours?
Well, I started mine last November. And then I wasn't posting consistently or anything. I was just, we've gone on a ski trip, like I'll make a video. But then same sort of thing, like when COVID hit, I was like, I should take this, more seriously. I should make more videos. Like I'm always getting asked, questions about like our US road trip or, what's it like living in Canada or, what's a working holiday even like? So I was like, I should, put some more effort into this and like start making content. And I've just started taking it seriously. I guess since like April, I've been like, like really focusing on it.
That's awesome. That's when I started mine too. So it's been a journey for sure. It's like crazy how much there is to learn about YouTube. Like,
so true. Yeah.
So much. And like people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I'm like like you definitely should, but there's like a lot. Like you gotta be prepared to take an undertaking here because it's a lot, but it's very rewarding too because like when people ask you questions and like they're like, oh, you were so helpful, thank you, and you're like, oh,
I know. Like my heart.
That's awesome. So pretty much like with your channel, like you pretty much talk about like just your experience when moving to Canada, right?
So when I started, I focused a lot on like, moving to Canada or, going on my road trip and kind of like explaining how I did those things. But then recently I've started kind of moving a bit more towards just showing like my everyday life and stuff like that. So it's a combination. It's, there's sit down videos where I talk about living in Canada and how you can live in Canada. And there's travel vlogs if we go traveling. But then I've also tried lately including more of my like day-to-day life because sometimes I think people think, oh, wow, you travel all the time. Like your life looks so amazing. And I'm like, there's days where I sit at home and don't travel. So I feel like I've been trying to show a bit more of that as well. But it's been good.
And you have such a great presence on your YouTube too. I think the first video that I watched of you was like literally you in like your closet, like talking about like I think you were talking about like your closet or something, but it was so funny. You were just like You're just like so yourself and just hilarious. I was just like, she's so funny. I was like, that's what I would do. So the presence that you have on your YouTube, like, it definitely shines through with your personality and just like being silly and being like, you know, like, this is what it is. Like, I do the same thing when I, you know, I feel like a lot of people might cut out. Sorry, my dog wants to play apparently, so he's squeaking a toy. So I feel like a lot of people will like almost cut out their personality sometimes with the YouTube videos. Like, you can watch them and you're like, okay, and like you can tell that there's something there, but like something's missing too, because like they're like, you know. So I like that you're very yourself when you're talking on your video.
Aww, thank you.
Yeah. It's a good channel. I like it.
Oh, thank you so much.
So what do you think is the biggest thing? So where do you see things going forward for you? Like, do you think that you want to stay one more winter in Canada, but then like, what are you going to do from there? Like, what do you kind of see in the future travel-wise?
Yes. Yeah, so I definitely want to go back to Australia at some point and live in Australia for a while. I'd love to just live back in there for a while, but I also grew up from when I was like 3 years old to 9 years old in New Zealand. So I have New Zealand citizenship, and I feel like I would love to go back and live there for a while, just because I feel like I miss that like New Zealand side of me. I'm like, I would love to explore like that more. But yeah, I definitely want to live in some more countries like throughout my life. But I guess it's just all going to depend on how like everything happens with COVID and everything. But in my near future, I can definitely see living like in New Zealand and living in Australia for a bit. But yeah, hopefully just one more winter in Canada, and then I could see myself coming back here for sure. But I think I'll go home for a bit.
How much of Canada have you explored since you moved there? Like, you've gotten,
a lot of the Rockies, and then a lot of like the West as well. Mostly what we haven't done is a lot of the East and a lot of like super up north. And that's just because of COVID. We had plans to go East, and then we were also hoping to get up to like Yukon and a lot further north, but it's just COVID, not being able to travel. But like, we've been lucky, we've been able to explore like a lot of the West and gone out to like Vancouver Island and things like that, and we've been able to explore a lot of the Rockies as well. So as much as I'm like, oh no, we didn't get to go to the East, I'm like, we got to see a lot. So I'm just like trying to be grateful for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, and sometimes it's like you don't get to see what you expected, but you still saw more than what you would have originally if you didn't like, do anything. It's not like you didn't do anything, you know?
That's such a good way to look at it.
Yeah. It's just different. It's just not the same, not what you expected. But hey, that's life. I always tell people, I'm like, the one thing in life that is constant is change, and that's what you've got to be prepared for. Like,
so true.
and one of the biggest things too, I think, is that when people are, and I know that, you know, maybe you can speak on this a little bit about like maybe how it is in Australia or even in Canada, but like, which I kind of have an idea what you would say, but like here in the US, like I feel like a lot of people work so much, and like holiday isn't as like prevalent. Like, people just don't do it as much as like I feel like we should. So like whenever they feel like travel is so like unattainable, and then they're like, oh well, I don't, you know, have time to take all that vacation and such like that. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we work to live, and we don't live to work.
Yeah. And
you know, it's just like we can't live our lives like just working all the time. And it's great to work and like love what you do, and like I love what I do for work, but it's like my passion is traveling and like seeing new places and like really experiencing and learning new things about new places, but also learning, I feel like I find new pieces of myself in other places. And it's crazy. It's like, how would I find a piece of myself in Colorado? But I guess I'm talking to myself now. I think she got cut off, guys. But I'm sure she'll pop right back on. Oh, there she is. We're back. There you are. I was like, oh, I guess I'm talking to myself.
Oh no, what's happening?
No problem.
We're back.
Yes, we're back. So yeah, no, it's just you know, I think it's crazy. You don't think that you would find a piece of yourself in like another place.
Yeah.
But you learn something new every time, I feel.
It's so true. Yeah. I feel the exact same. It's so
true.
Yeah.
How many countries have you been to?
I think 7 or 6. Not a whole lot, but I feel like I've done a lot of travel like within the countries that I've been to, which is, but yeah.
Yeah, not like I just went to one city, like, here we go.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Especially with like America, people are like, oh, have you been to America? And I'm like, God, I feel like I've been to like 30 or 40 states. Like, yeah.
How many states, do you know how many, is it around 30 or 40? Like, how many states have you actually been to? Do you know around?
I have it written down on my phone. I'm like one of those people who like writes it down and ticks it off.
I have the little picture map thing.
I love that.
In my bag. I need one of Europe because Europe would be more filled. But
it's at 28. Not as many as I thought, but I have them all written down. I'm like determined to tick them off. Yeah.
Listen, let me just say that's more than most Americans. Okay, I think I saw a statistic the other day that more than 40% of Americans, more than 60% of Americans haven't been to more than 10 states.
That's crazy, hey? Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So like that's insane. Like to just think about it. And I just got past that on my last trip. Ooh. So now I'm at 15.
Yeah, crushing it.
So, yeah, like I'm above the bracket now.
Yeah,
so
you've got it. You're above the percentage.
Above the percentage. But yeah, no, I mean that's a lot of states. And like I was just saying earlier, like all the states are all different. They're not like it's like different worlds. It really is. I have a friend of mine who also has a YouTube channel and everything, and they're traveling right now. They just bought an RV, and they were in South Dakota and North Dakota, and like going through the Badlands, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really cool. Like really cool.
It's so diverse. Yeah.
You can learn so much from it all. I love it.
It's so true. Yeah, I agree. You definitely can.
So I want to ask a question about Australia and New Zealand because I've heard, I feel like, first of all, most people don't realize like the difference, but that's all right. I want to ask like, how different is New Zealand from Australia? I hear like New Zealand's like God's land. Like it's just like things just thrown and it's like the landscape is incredible. But again, you have these preconceived notions of places. So I love to hear because you said you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember much of New Zealand because I was quite young, but it's a lot of like beautiful mountains and lakes. And there's like also when you're in New Zealand, you're always so close to the coast because of like the way the shape is. It's a bad way of explaining, but you know, so I feel like it's very like
island, right? Island? It's an island.
Yeah, there's like the North Island and the South Island. Yeah, so it's very, very scenic and beautiful. Like like a lot of like mountains. It's a lot of like pretty lakes and stuff like that. I guess Australia is more like desert, hot. Yeah, I guess like I haven't been back to New Zealand, so I'm only going off like what I can slightly remember. But yeah, it's kind of like it reminds me of like when I like back home, people are like, oh, Canada and the States like the same thing, and I'm like, now that I've been there, I'm like, oh, it's not, and I feel like that's the same thing with like New Zealand and Australia. People are like, oh yeah, it's just like the same thing, and I'm like, no, they're so different. Yeah,
everywhere is different. Yeah, no, that's crazy. So do you have anything to give to people to like what is your best advice for traveling in Canada? Like if obviously they can't really travel right now, Americans, but like what's your like once COVID restrictions, whatever, with the future, what do you think people should do first, or what is like your best advice for people?
Oh, I'm trying to think of like what to do first. I'm like, oh my god, everything is so nice.
Everything. That's the short answer.
Literally, the short answer is honestly everything. I think just like pick an area. I feel like it's kind of like anything with travel. It's so easy to get overwhelmed and go like, oh my god, like I need to see everything. But I think with Canada, and I mean a lot of places as well, like there's so much beauty in so many different spots. I feel like just choose an area and just explore that and try and like take your time to explore it. I found with traveling in the past, you know, if you go to one place for like, oh, I'm just going to spend like one day here, sometimes like you miss seeing so many beautiful things. And sometimes I'm like, it's nice to just spend a lot of time in like one place. So yeah. And I also feel like with Canada, if you get like a car or a van, like the road trips here are so beautiful, especially throughout like the Rockies and like the drive from like Vancouver to Whistler or the drive from Banff to Jasper. I just think like, get a car, get a van, try and drive it because it's so beautiful. Like,
well, that's good advice because they have train travel up there, but it's not as extensive as Europe. And I don't really know how the train system is in Australia or anything. But in Europe, like I can only go based on what my experiences in Europe. Like their train systems are very, you know, there's a lot. You can get like anywhere by train or bus or public transportation. Is that the same thing in Canada? Like, is that
I think
just kind of have like one train, right? Or
I think more on the east. Kind of like I feel like with the States, I don't know. I feel like the public transport in the east is really good. But I'm not sure. Like, not really too much in the west. I mean, there is public transport, but I don't think it's as like extensive as like Europe or the east. But yeah, I just feel like the road trips here are really great. Like, I would really recommend getting like a car or a van and just doing a drive. Honestly, it's so nice. Yeah,
that's good advice. I mean, because in Europe, it's like definitely the way to travel is to take public transportation. Like, that's the easy, that's the best way. So it's good to know, like, if you're going to Canada, like, you should rent a car and you should go and explore, which makes sense. I mean, once you get so far into the mountains, like, you can't really like the train systems can't be that great over there with like how much they have to like go through to get like. You know.
Yeah, if you're on the west or going to the Rockies or anything like that, like you definitely like a car or a van is the way to go.
And are the roads pretty open? Like they're pretty good about like the major roads, like snow, whatever, you know.
They handle all of that. I mean, there's times where like roads are closed if there's like, you know, an avalanche or there's a big snowfall, but otherwise like they're good at keeping on top of all of that. I mean, I guess they kind of like have to, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
No, I just wonder because it's like so north, like compared to literally all of the US. It's more north. So I just like wonder, like, oh, like, do they just kind of like shut it down and like it's just done?
Sometimes they'll be closed, like if there's a massive snowfall or like a avalanche or something. But otherwise, like they're just always snow plowing.
That's funny. That's awesome. Is there any last things you have to share with everyone?
I'm trying to think. I feel like I've given out so much stuff. I'm like, what haven't I said?
We're overwhelmed with them, but that's good.
I think I've gotten pretty much everything out. Yeah. It's been good.
Well, I do have a final question that I like to ask my guests.
Yeah.
So how has travel changed you and impacted your life?
Yeah. So it has changed me so much. I feel like I'm a more like confident person, which I mean, like I'm still growing on, but I feel like I'm more confident. I'm willing to put myself out there. I feel more cultured and like I've learned more things. So I feel like I can't even imagine what my life would be like if I didn't travel. Like I don't even remember the person I was before this version of my traveled self. I feel like you learn so much about yourself and you grow so much as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true. And I just remember seeing those videos when I was younger, like, oh my God, I just did the study abroad. And like, you know, like people are like making fun of these videos and then you do it and you're like, okay, like it really does change you. Like, I'm not trying to be basic. Like, I really.
That's so true. So true.
It's like you try not to be basic about it, but you're like, it really is life changing. Like,
literally, I'm like, oh, they were all right.
They were all right. So funny. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Beth, for coming on. Guys, it was great to have you. And guys, if you guys are watching, go follow Beth on YouTube. She is awesome. I love her videos. Her energy really, really shines through, as you can tell in this video. You don't get this far. Like, you already love her. Don't lie. Okay. So go subscribe to her channel. Go find her on Instagram, Beth Gould _. Okay. And then you can follow me too if you like,
yeah.
And yeah, so I go live every Tuesday for Travel Tip Tuesday with a new guest, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this with Beth. It was a pleasure to have her, and it's always a pleasure to have all these different guests who come on and just share something about travel that either I didn't know or you didn't know, and we just kind of learn all together. Like, we can't see well, we can try to see everything in the world, but sometimes we can't always make it. So I can learn and take it all from everybody else and go from there. So thank you so much again, Beth, for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Oh, it was amazing.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.